Lieutenant Vithari Suan opened her eyes slowly. Her head hurt. Her chest hurt. Everything hurt. For a long moment, she did not know where she was. The lights were red and dim. The air tasted like burnt metal. Somewhere far away, a soft alarm was beeping in a slow, tired voice, as if even the ship was too broken to scream. Then she remembered. The Vor had come out of the dark. 5 raider ships, fast and silent, with their guns already firing. The Silver Filament had no chance. Her crew of 8 had not even finished their morning meal. One moment they were laughing about a joke that Petra had told. The next moment, the ship was breaking apart, and the void was eating everything she loved. Vethari was the only one left. She tried to sit up. Pain shot through her lower body like fire. She looked down and saw that 2 of her 6 legs were broken. One of her sidearms was bent at a wrong angle. Ceylani bones were thin and light, made for graceful movement, not for surviving war. She was lucky to be alive at all. But alive was a word with a small future. She knew that. She forced herself to crawl across the broken floor. Glass and metal cut into her soft hands. She reached the small panel near the medical room and pressed it with shaking fingers. The screen flickered, then showed her the truth she did not want to see. Life support. 40 hours. Distress beacon. Destroyed. Long-range comms. Dead. Engines. Gone. Position. Deep inside the threshing belt. Vethari closed her eyes. The threshing belt was a graveyard. A wide ring of dead asteroids and old wrecks at the edge of explored space. Ships went into the belt sometimes. Ships did not come out. No one would come looking for her here. No one even knew she was alive. She was going to die. For most species in the galaxy, this thought would bring panic. But Vethari was Ceylani, and her people had a different way of looking at death. The Ceylani believed that every life was a small light, and every light, in the end, must return to the great darkness between the stars. They called this the quiet returning. To die alone in the void, with the stars as your only witness, was not a sad thing. It was a clean thing, a pure thing, a dignified end. So Vethari did what her people had done for 10,000 years. She prepared for her quiet returning. She crawled slowly back to her command chair. She cleaned the blood from her face with a soft cloth. She straightened her uniform as much as she could. She set the recording device in front of her and pressed the small button that began the final words. "My name is Lieutenant Vethari Suan," she said softly. Her voice was rough but steady. "Daughter of House Suan, sister of Morel. I am speaking now because I am about to begin my quiet returning." She paused. Her throat felt tight. "To my sister Morel, do not weep for me. I had a good life. I saw 3 new worlds. I tasted rain on the moon of Velis. I loved a man for a short time, and he loved me back, and that was enough. Tell our mother that I am not afraid. Tell our father that I kept my promise. Tell yourself that you were the best part of my life, and I am sorry I will not see you grow old." Her hand moved to stop the recording. But before she could press the button, something caught her eye. The sensor screen, half broken, was showing a small red dot. Vethari froze. Something was coming. She wiped the screen with her shaking hand and looked again. The dot was real. A ship. Approaching from the deeper part of the belt, where no honest pilot would ever go. The signal had no transponder, no ID code, no friendly handshake. Whatever it was, it did not want to be known. She pulled up the shape on the cracked display. The ship was ugly. That was the first word that came to her mind. It was not built. It was made. Pieces of it did not match. The hull had been patched many times with metal of different colors. There were extra parts welded onto the sides, like teeth. The engines were too big for a ship that size. It looked like something a child might draw if the child was angry. Her translator unit, working slowly, matched the shape to its database. It returned only one result. Human, unregistered. Class, Wrecker. Vethari felt cold spread through her chest, colder than the void outside. In the Concordat, every child knew the stories about humans. Most humans were normal, of course. The diplomats of the Sol Compact were polite and clever. They drank tea and signed treaties. They smiled with their soft mouths and shook hands with strange firmness. But the unregistered ones were different. They lived outside the law of their own people. They worked the dark places of the galaxy. in old ship graveyards and on lawless moons. They were called monsters, and the stories said the name was earned. They were the salvagers, the wreckers, the slavers, the ones who took anything that no one was strong enough to keep. The Concordat had a rule for any ship that met an unregistered human. The rule had only one word: run. Vithari almost laughed. Run. She could not even stand. The red dot grew bigger on her screen. The ship was coming straight for her. It had seen her. Of course it had. A wrecker's eyes were always on the dark, looking for soft things to take. Vithari thought about her quiet returning. She had wanted to die clean, in the cold and the silence, with her last words spoken to her sister. That was a Ceylani death. A dignified death. Now she would die another way. A loud way. A messy way. A way her people did not have a word for, because her people had never imagined it could happen to one of their own. She thought, with a strange calm, about all the things the wrecker might do to her. The stories were full of details. None of them were kind. She picked up her small belt knife. The blade was short. It was not made for fighting. It was made for cutting fruit and rope. But it was sharp enough. If the wrecker came aboard, she decided, she would not let him take her alive. She would make her quiet, returning her own way, even if she had to do it with her own hand. That was still better than what waited in a wrecker's hold. The ship grew closer. She could see it now through her cracked window, a black shape against the stars. It was huge. Bigger than her broken silver filament. It moved with a smooth, patient strength, like a predator that had never needed to hurry. Vithari held the small knife against her chest. She closed her eyes and whispered the old prayer of her people, the one that travelers said before sleep on dangerous nights. Stars, witness me. Darkness, hold me. Let me return quietly. Let me not be made small. Outside, the wrecker ship rolled gently and matched her speed. There was a soft, heavy thump as something locked onto her hull. The sound went through the ship like a slow heartbeat. Then, somewhere down the corridor, she heard the slow hiss of an airlock seal. The monster was coming aboard. The footsteps were heavy. That was the first thing Vethari noticed. The wrecker did not run. He did not creep. He walked like a man who knew the ship was already his, and he was just coming to take what was inside. She held her small belt knife close to her chest. Her 3 good legs were folded under her. Her broken legs lay still and useless. She tried to slow her breathing. She tried to remember the prayer of her people, but her heart was beating like a drum. And the prayer would not come. The footsteps stopped outside the command room door. For a long moment, there was silence. Then the door slid open, with a tired groan. The human filled the doorway. Vethari had seen pictures of humans before, in her training files. She had even spoken to one once, a Sol Compact ambassador, who came to her academy for a lecture. That human had been small and neat, with kind eyes and a soft handshake. This human was not small. This human was not neat. He stood almost 2.5 meters tall. His shoulders were so wide they touched both sides of the doorway. He wore a heavy suit made of many different parts, like his ship. The suit was scratched and dented. It had clearly saved his life many times. He carried a long weapon in one hand, holding it the way a tired worker holds an old tool. His helmet had a black cracked visor. Slowly, he reached up and pulled it off. His face was a map of old fights. Long scars crossed his cheek and ran into his short hair. His skin was rough and brown from too much sun on too many strange worlds. One of his eyes was a normal human eye, gray and hard. The other eye was a small silver machine that hummed softly and turned to look at her with a tiny clicking sound. His jaw was wide and dark, with rough hair. His mouth was a flat line. He did not look surprised to see her. He did not look angry. He did not look kind. He just looked at her the way a doctor looks at a patient, as if he was counting her wounds. Vethari raised her small knife with a shaking hand. "Stay back," she said. Her voice was thin and weak. She hated how it sounded. "Do not come closer. I will not be taken." The human did not stop. He did not even slow down. He stepped over a broken pipe and walked into her command room, looking around at the damage with a calm, professional eye. "Put the knife down," he said. His voice was deep and tired. The trade pigeon came out of him slowly, like he did not use it often. "I will use it," Vithari said. "On me or on yourself?" She did not answer. The human stopped a few steps away from her. He looked down at her broken legs. His silver eye made a small clicking noise as it focused on her wounds. "Both legs broken," he said, mostly to himself. "Sidearm dislocated, some bleeding under the fur. Not deep. Cracked rib, maybe two." He looked at her face. "You hit your head. You're not seeing straight. That's why your hand is shaking like that." Vithari blinked. He was right. The room was tilting in a way that rooms should not tilt. "How do you know Sehlani anatomy?" she whispered. The human shrugged one big shoulder. "Read a book once." Then he crouched down. His knees popped loudly. He set his weapon on the floor, far enough that she could see he was not going to grab it quickly. He took off his heavy gloves and laid them next to the gun. "My name is Calder Ross," he said. "I work the belt. Your beacon is dead. Your engines are gone, and your air will run out before tomorrow. The Vor who hit you will come back to scan the wreck for survivors. They like to take live ones. You don't want to know what they do with them." Vithari swallowed. She knew. Everyone knew. "I'm taking you off this ship," Calder said. "You can come walking, if you can. I'll carry you, if you can't. But you're not staying here." The little knife was still in her hand. Her arm was getting tired. The room was still tilting. "What is the price?" she whispered. She had to ask. Her culture demanded it. Every story about humans ended with a price. Organs, indenture, ransom. Worse. The price was always something terrible. The price was the whole point of the story. Calder looked at her with that strange, mismatched gaze. His silver eye whirred softly. His real eye was steady. "Price," he said slowly, "is you don't die on my ship. I hate the paperwork." Vithari stared at him. She waited for the rest. The cruel smile. The hidden meaning. The trap inside the words. It did not come. Calder waited a moment longer. Then, very slowly, he reached out one big, rough hand. He did not grab her. He did not take the knife. He just held the hand open, palm up, like a man offering food to a frightened animal. "You're going to pass out in about a minute," he said calmly. "When you do, the knife is going to fall, and I'm going to pick you up. I want you to know that before it happens, so you don't wake up scared." The room tilted again, harder this time. The edges of her vision went soft and white. Vithari thought of her sister Morel. She thought of the quiet returning. She thought, in a strange, small voice, somewhere deep in her mind, that this was not how the stories said it would go. The wreckers in the stories did not warn you before you fell. The knife slipped from her fingers. She did not even feel it leave her hand. The last thing she saw was the human leaning forward, not grabbing, not laughing, just catching her, gently, before she could hit the broken floor. Then the dark came. She came back slowly, in pieces. First she felt warmth. A real warmth. The kind that came from a heater that worked, not the dying breath of a broken ship. Then she felt softness under her body. A bed. A real bed, with a thin blanket pulled up over her shoulders. Then she heard the music. It was strange music, slow and sad, strings of some kind. A human voice that she could not understand, singing low and gentle, like someone trying not to wake a child. She had never heard anything like it. She did not know that sound could be both heavy and soft at the same time. She opened her eyes. The room was small. The walls were metal, but they were clean. Bright lights had been dimmed, she noticed, to a soft level that did not hurt her sensitive Ceylani eyes. There was a small machine beside her bed, beeping in a steady, healthy rhythm. A clear tube ran into her arm. Her broken legs had been set straight. They were wrapped in clean white bindings. The pain was still there, but it was a small, dull pain, far away, like a sound in another room. Someone had taken care of her. Carefully, patiently. She turned her head slowly. Calder Ross sat in a chair across the room. His big body looked too large for the small chair. His head was bent over a mug of something hot. He was reading from a thin paper book, holding it carefully in his rough hands. His silver eye glowed faintly in the dim light. He had not noticed she was awake yet. Vithari watched him for a long moment. She did not understand. None of this was in any of the stories. None of this was in any of the rules. The monster, she realized slowly, had a paper book. The monster had dimmed the lights for her eyes. The monster had set her broken bones with hands that knew exactly where each Ceylani bone went. The monster was reading a book and drinking tea while she slept. Vithari did not know what to do with this. So she did the only thing she could think of. She closed her eyes again and let the strange music carry her back into sleep. The days on the coffin nail had a strange shape. That was the name of the wrecker's ship, Vithari learned. The coffin nail. She had asked Calder why he called it that. On her third day awake, he had only shrugged and said, "Seemed honest." She did not know if that was a joke or a sad fact, or both. The ship was nothing like the clean, white Concordat vessels Vithari was used to. The coffin nail was a working ship. Every wall had tools clipped to it. Every floor had small marks where heavy crates had been dragged across it. The air smelled of oil, of recycled water, and of something deep and strange that she eventually realized was the smell of Calder himself, mixed into everything because he was the only one who lived here. The ship talked to him. Not like a smart machine talks. More like an old friend. When Calder walked past a panel, lights would softly turn on. When he sat down in his pilot chair, the seat shaped itself to him without him asking. He cursed at the ship sometimes, in a low, friendly voice, and patted its walls when it did something he liked. Vethari watched all of this from her bed, then from a wheeled chair Calder had built for her, then on her own 3 good legs, slowly, while leaning on the walls. She watched, and she counted. It was a habit her training had given her. When you did not understand something, you counted. You wrote down the small things. Slowly, the small things made a picture. On the first day, Vithari counted the weapons. There were many. A long gun by the door of every room. A small knife on Calder's belt that never left him, even when he slept. A rack in the engine room with cutting tools that could double as weapons. The kitchen had a heavy pan that was clearly used for both cooking and hitting things. This was a man who was ready to fight at any moment. On the second day, Vithari counted the kindnesses. He brought her food before he ate. He turned the lights down whenever he saw her wince. When she could not reach a cup, he moved it closer without speaking, as if he had not noticed her trying. He gave her his only soft pillow. He slept in his pilot chair instead of his own bed, because his bed was now her bed. This was a man who was very used to taking care of someone. The two facts did not fit. She tried to push them into one shape, and they would not go. On the fourth day, she finally asked. Calder was at the small kitchen table, slowly cutting strange purple roots with his belt knife. The pan was heating on the cooker. The strange, sad music was playing again, from a small box on the shelf. Calder Ross? Vithari said carefully. May I ask you a question? He did not look up. You can ask. I might not answer. Why did you save me? The knife stopped moving for a second. Then it started again. He cut 3 more roots before he spoke. Found you, he said. Wasn't going to leave you. That is not an answer. It's the answer I have. Vithari leaned forward in her chair. Her broken bones were healing well. The pain was less every day. In my culture, she said softly, every act has a meaning. Every kindness has a reason. If a stranger gives you bread, you must know why. Because the why tells you what the bread really is. Is it food? Or is it a chain? Calder stopped cutting. He set down the knife. He looked at her with both of his eyes, the gray one and the silver one. That sounds like a hard way to live, he said. It is a careful way to live. Same thing sometimes. He picked up the cut roots and dropped them in the hot pan. They hissed and sent up steam that smelled. Surprisingly, very good. Look, Calder said, with his back to her. I'm not going to tell you a beautiful story. I don't have one. I found a hurt person on a dead ship in bad space. I had room. I had supplies. I had time. I took her with me. That's it. That's the whole thing. But the stories say, I know what the stories say. His voice was suddenly sharp. He turned to look at her. I've heard the stories. I've heard them all my life. Every species has its stories about humans like me. We're monsters. We eat children. We sell organs. We have no honor. We do everything bad, and we laugh while we do it. Vithari said nothing. Calder's shoulders lowered slowly. The sharpness left his face. Some of those stories are true about some of us, he said quietly. I won't lie to you. The belt has bad people in it. Wreckers who would have done all the things you were afraid of. I know 2 of them by name. One of them owes me money. He turned back to the pan and stirred the food. But I'm not them, he said. I never was. I just look like them. Because I work in the same dark places. Vethery was quiet for a long time. The music played softly behind her. The food smelled wonderful. Her 3 good hands were folded in her lap. Why do you work in the dark places then? She asked. If you are not like them. Calder did not answer for a long time. He served the food onto 2 plates. He set hers down in front of her, and his own across the table. He sat down. He picked up his fork. He looked at the food. I used to be Sol Compact Military, he said finally. Special unit. The kind they don't put on the news. I did things. Some good, some not. One day, I was given an order I would not follow. So I left. Walked off a ship in the middle of nowhere. Took a boat. Never went back. What was the order? His silver eye whirred softly. His gray eye stayed on the table. Doesn't matter, he said. What matters is, after that, the Compact didn't want me, and the Concordat thought I was a war criminal, and the Wreckers thought I was a hero. Only the Wreckers were wrong, but they had the only place left for me. So here I am. The belt is full of dead ships and dead people. I clean them up. I sell the parts. Sometimes, when something living shows up in the dark, I take it home. He looked up at her. The silver eye was steady. That's the answer, he said. It's not a beautiful one, but it's true. Vethery looked at her food. Her culture's careful question was answered. The bread was bread. There was no chain. She picked up her fork with her shaking hand. She ate. The food was very good. That night, Vethery could not sleep. She sat in the small window of her room and watched the stars. The threshing belt was beautiful. In its way, broken ships drifted far away, slowly turning, catching the light of distant suns. They looked like sleeping giants. Calder came by. He brought her a cup of warm tea. He did not speak. He just set it on the small table beside her, gave her a short nod, and walked away to his pilot chair. The tea was made the way Ceylani drink it, hot, with a small slice of bitter root and 1 drop of sweet syrup. Vethery did not know how he knew this. She had not told him. She held the cup in her 3 good hands and watched the stars, and felt, for the first time since the Vor came, like something inside her was beginning to mend. Then the alarm started screaming. It was not the soft, tired alarm of the dying silver filament. This was a loud, angry alarm, the kind a healthy ship makes when something terrible is coming. Red lights flashed. Calder was on his feet at the pilot chair, before Vethery had even put down her cup. She heard him say one word, very quietly. Vor. 3 ships, the screen showed. 3 Vor raiders, coming fast. The hunters had found her again. Vethery watched Calder's face, looking for fear. There was none. The red alarm lights flashed on his rough, scarred skin. The silver eye whirred and clicked, scanning the screens. 3 Vor raider ships were coming straight at them through the asteroid field. They were faster, newer, and there were 3 of them, against 1 tired old wrecker. Calder cracked the bones in his neck. He cracked the bones in his thick fingers. Then he smiled. It was a small smile. A tight, hard smile. The first real smile Vethery had ever seen on him. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had been waiting for something, and the something had finally arrived. Strap in, kid, Calder said. I'm about to be impolite. Vethery did not understand the human word impolite. She would learn its meaning over the next few hours. She would never forget it. She moved to the second seat by his pilot chair and pulled the heavy harness over her body. Her broken legs were still healing, but her hands worked, and she could read a tactical screen better than most pilots in the Concordat. She had been trained for this kind of moment. She had just never been trained to fight beside a human. They are warships, she said quickly, looking at the readings. Vor Type 3 raiders. Each one has 4 heavy guns and 2 missile pods. What do we have? Mining lasers, Calder said calmly, flipping switches. 2 harpoon tethers, a reactor I shouldn't have, a pile of asteroids out the window. and a bad mood. That is not a warship list. No, he agreed. It's not. The first Vor ship opened fire. Long red beams shot through the dark, far from the coffin nail. Warning shots. The Vor were trying to scare them into stopping. Calder did not stop. He pushed the coffin nail straight at them. Vathari's heart climbed into her throat. Calder, she said. What are you doing? Salvage rule number 1, Calder said. Never run in a straight line in an asteroid field. Salvage rule number 2. Always know where the rocks are. He pulled the controls, and the coffin nail dove between 2 huge, slow-turning asteroids. The Vor ships followed. The first one flew too fast and clipped the edge of a rock. Sparks burst from its hull. Its shield flickered. Calder's silver eye gleamed. He swung the ship around in a sharp turn that made Vathari's stomach feel like it had been left behind. He pointed the front of the coffin nail straight at the wounded Vor ship and fired. But not with weapons. He fired the mining laser. The huge industrial cutting beam, the kind used to slice asteroids in half, hit the Vor ship along its side and ran the full length of its hull. Vathari watched in shock as the raider opened up like a fruit being peeled. The crew of the Vor ship spilled out into the void, their small shapes spinning slowly in the dark. Vathari had never seen a ship killed so quickly. The second and third Vor ships hesitated. They had come to hunt a wrecker. They had not expected the wrecker to come at them like a wild animal. Calder used the moment. He fired one of his harpoon tethers. The heavy hook shot out and dug deep into the second Vor ship's hull. The cable went tight with a high singing sound. Then Calder did something Vathari did not understand. He turned the coffin nail hard to the side and fired the engines at full power, swinging the harpooned ship around like a stone in a sling. The Vor ship spun helplessly through space, faster and faster, until it slammed straight into a huge dark asteroid. The hit was so hard the asteroid itself broke apart. The Vor ship was crushed inside it. Calder cut the cable. The harpoon stayed in the wreckage. He had more. The third Vor ship turned and ran. A normal pilot would have let it go. The fight was over. The hunters had become prey, and the last hunter was running away. The honorable thing was to let the Vor captain live and take the news home. Calder did not let it go. He chased the Vor ship through the threshing belt for the next 6 hours. Vathari watched, in horror and awe. She had never seen anything like it. Calder did not eat. He did not drink. He did not stand up from his pilot chair. He kept the coffin nail glued to the back of the running Vor like a shadow that would not let go. The Vor captain tried everything. He hid in dust clouds. Calder, followed by feeling the hot trail of his engines. The Vor captain dove deep into thick asteroid fields. Calder followed through the same gaps, trusting his ship's reflexes more than his own eyes. The Vor captain pushed his engines past their safe limit. Calder pushed his engines past 3 safe limits. After 2 hours, Vathari said softly, Calder, he is beaten. Let him go. Calder did not look at her. No. Why not? We are safe. We have won. He killed your crew. Vathari's breath caught. She had not told him this. She had not said the names of her crewmates. She had not told him how she had been the only one to live. She had only said, on the second day, that her ship had been ambushed by Vor raiders. He had remembered, and he had done the math. I do not need this, Vathari whispered. Calder, I do not need. You don't need it, Calder said quietly. Maybe. But your sister will. And the families of your crew will. And every Ceylani ship that has to fly through this part of space next year. They will need to know that this captain isn't out here anymore. His silver eye fixed on the screen. His big rough hands moved over the controls. And I'm not letting it go, he said. Because nobody else will. After 4 more hours, the Vor ship's engines finally failed. It went silent in the dark, drifting helpless among the rocks. Calder pulled the coffin nail in close. He stood up from his pilot chair. He stretched until his back popped. He picked up a heavy weapon from the rack by the door. You stay, he told Vathari. I am coming with you. You have 2 broken legs. I have 4 good arms. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he gave a small, short nod. Stay behind me. The walk into the dead Vor ship was the strangest thing Vathari had ever done. The corridors were dark. The air was thin. Vor crew were hiding in corners and rooms, holding small weapons, hoping the human would pass them by. Calder did not pass them by. He did not shout. He did not run. He moved through the ship slowly, room by room, the way a hunter moves through a forest. He was very fast when he needed to be. He was very calm when he did not. Vathari followed behind, holding a small Vor pistol Calder had given her, and watched what humans become when something they have decided to protect is threatened. There was no rage in Calder, no glory-seeking, no cruelty. There was only a cold, patient refusal to lose. He took hits that would have stopped any of her people. He kept walking. He kept finishing the job. The wounds slowed him. They did not stop him. When at last they reached the Vor captain's chamber, Calder did not give a speech. He did not ask questions. He looked at the captain, a tall, thin Vor with golden eye stripes, the same stripes Vathari had seen on the lead ship of the ambush, and said only one short sentence. For her crew. It was over quickly. Hours later, back on the coffin nail, Calder limped into the medbay. His suit was burned in 3 places. Blood ran down his arm. His silver eye had a crack in it. He carried a small object in his good hand. He set it on the tray beside Vathari's bed. It was the Vor captain's signet, the metal ring of his rank. Thought you might want it, he said quietly. For your people. Then he sat down on the floor beside her bed, leaned his head back against the wall, and finally, after almost a day, allowed himself to close his eyes. Vathari held the small ring in her hand. She wept, not from fear, not from grief, from the impossible, world-changing understanding that this scarred, terrifying, wounded creature had crossed the threshing belt for nothing more, and nothing less, than the names of strangers she had not even told him. The monster, she finally understood, had never been the monster. He had only been the one who came. 3 weeks later, the coffin nail came out of the deep dark and into the light of a friendly star. Vathari stood at the front window beside Calder's pilot chair. She could walk again now, slowly, with a small cane. Her broken legs had set well. The bruises on her face had faded. The cuts on her hands were thin pink lines. She was thin and tired, but she was alive, and she was returning home. Ahead of them, the Concordat border station floated against the stars. It was a beautiful thing, white and silver, shaped like a great open flower. Ceylani ships, neat and shining, moved gently around it like small fish around a quiet rock. Vathari had passed through this station many times in her life. It had always meant safety. It had always meant home. Today, looking at it, she felt something she had not expected. She felt sad. Last call from your people just came in, Calder said quietly. They want you to know they're ready to receive you. They're sending a small medical ship to come and pick you up. They don't want me docking at the station. Of course they don't, Vathari said. They said it nicely. They always say it nicely. Calder gave one of his small, short laughs. He had been laughing more in the last week. Small, careful laughs, like a man who was learning the sound again after a long time of not making it. He brought the coffin nail to a slow stop. The small, white Ceylani medical ship was already approaching. Through the window, Vathari could see the round, friendly shape of it. 2 diplomats stood waving from its front window, their soft hands moving in the formal greeting of welcome. Vathari's chest felt tight. She walked slowly to the airlock. Calder followed her. He carried her small bag of borrowed clothes, and the few things he had given her over the weeks. The book she had started reading, the mug she liked, the strange music box, which he had quietly slipped into the bag without telling her. At the airlock, he set the bag down. He did not step inside with her. He could not. The Concordat would arrest him on sight. They had already told him so, in their nice, careful words. This is where I get off, Calder said. Vathari did not move. Vathari. His voice was gentle. It's all right. You're free to go. Your people are waiting. She still did not move. She thought of her sister, Mirel. She thought of her family home in the gentle green hills of Ceylon Prime. She thought of her commander, who would want a full report. She thought of the Concordat, which would demand that she call Calder a monster, that she write her experience as a sad story of a captured officer who had survived, that she leave out the kindness, that she leave out the music, that she leave out the warm tea, made the Ceylani way for reasons she still did not fully understand. She thought of the quiet returning. The clean, alone, dignified end her people had taught her was the highest beauty. And she thought, with a slow, strange certainty, that her people had been wrong about a very small but very important thing. A life that ends alone is not always the most beautiful kind of life. Sometimes, the most beautiful kind of life is one that does not end alone, because someone you did not expect, in a place you did not expect, decided that they would not let you go. Vithari turned around. She walked back from the airlock. She picked up her bag. She carried it past Calder into the small room that had been hers for the last weeks and set it down beside the bed. Then she walked back to the airlock and opened her hand, palm up, in the human gesture of polite negotiation Calder had taught her one evening. Lieutenant Vithari Suwan, she said clearly, of the Concordat Survey Corps, hereby resigns her commission. Effective immediately. Calder stared at her. Vithari, he said slowly. What are you doing? I have thought about it for many days, she said. Her voice was calm. Her 3 good hands were steady. My people will tell me to write a report. The report will be a lie. They will want me to say that I was captured by a wrecker. They will want me to say that I was lucky to survive. They will want the human in the story to be the monster, because that is the easy story. That is the story they already know. Vithari, I will not tell that story, she said. I will tell the true one. I will go to the station. I will tell them the truth, every word of it. I will demand that the Concordat give you the protection of an honored ally. They will refuse. I know they will. And when they refuse, I will resign, and I will come back to this ship, because the ship is now where the truth is, and I have decided to live with the truth. She paused. Also, she said, and a small smile pulled at the corner of her mouth. You cannot navigate. I have watched you do it. You are a brave man and a terrible navigator. The coffin nail deserves better. Calder's mouth opened. Then it closed. Then it opened again. He said nothing for a long moment. The silver eye whirred softly. The gray eye blinked. You don't have to do this, he said finally. You have a sister. You have a home. You have a name in good standing with your people. I'm not worth all of that. You do not get to decide what you are worth, Vithari said gently. I have been deciding it for 3 weeks, and my decision is mine, not yours. She gave the small Ceylani head bow that her people used when speaking to a respected elder. Calder Ross, she said. You came when no one else would. You will not be alone in the dark anymore. That is my decision. The small white medical ship was waiting outside. The diplomats were still waving. Vithari stepped through the airlock onto the boarding tube. Before she went out of sight, she turned and looked back at Calder, who was still standing in his ship's airlock with his silver eye and his scars and his quiet face. Wait for me, she said. She walked across the boarding tube and into the medical ship. What happened on the station was long and loud and full of careful words and careful papers. Vithari said her piece. The Concordat diplomats listened in growing horror, then disbelief, then anger. They told her she was confused. They told her she had been tricked by human cleverness. They told her that no human could be trusted, especially not an unregistered one. She listened politely. Then she said her piece again, with the same calm voice. Using the same words, she gave them the recording from her last hours on the silver filament. She gave them the Vor captain's signet. She gave them every detail of her time on the coffin nail, leaving out nothing, not the kindnesses, not the music, not the long, terrible chase through the asteroid field, not the quiet, warm tea made the Ceylani way. She told them she was resigning her commission. She told them she was returning to the ship of Calder Ross. She told them, with a small, stubborn smile, that the galaxy was bigger than the stories they kept telling about it, and she had decided to go and see for herself. It took 6 hours. At the end of it, they let her go. They did not have a rule for what to do with her. No one had ever done this before. Morel was waiting in the docking corridor. She held Vithari for a long time. She wept quietly. Vithari wept too. Then Morel stepped back and looked at her face, and saw something there that she had not seen before. A strange new light, a quiet certainty. Sister, Morel whispered. Are you sure? I am sure. He is good? He is good. Morel gave a small, tired smile. Then go. Vithari walked back across the boarding tube, into the airlock of the coffin nail, where Calder was standing, exactly where she had left him. like a man who had not moved in 6 hours because he was afraid that moving might break a small, fragile thing. She set her bag down. She looked at him. "I told you to wait," she said. "I waited. Good. I am Lieutenant Vithari Suan, no longer of the Concordat Survey Corps. I am your new navigator." Calder gave that small, quiet laugh again, the one she was learning to love. "Hope you like the music, kid," he said. "It's a long way to anywhere." The coffin nail's engines warmed up with a soft hum. The airlock sealed behind her. The ship turned slowly away from the bright white station and pointed its scarred nose back toward the deep dark. Behind them, the Concordat would argue about her report for years. Some would say she was a fool. Some would say she was a hero. A few brave ones would say she had told the truth, and the truth was making them rethink every story they had ever heard. Ahead of them, the threshing belt waited, full of the dead and the lost, and the ones nobody else would come for. Vethary took her seat in the second pilot chair. She put her 3 good hands on the controls. The strange, sad music began to play, soft and gentle, and this time, she found she knew the tune. She had anticipated a lonely death. She got a life instead.